All right. So thank you everybody for taking time out from your busy day to attend our webinar today, jointly organized by Touchnet and Arrosoft. And the topic that we're going to be touching today is really about how can Arrosoft solutions help you to accelerate your Zadara Cloud business. So like many of us in this room, Touchnet and many of you as well, Arrosoft are also Zadara partners. We actually own and operate the Zadara storage cloud in Taiwan, working out of Taipei. So what we have seen over the years is that just getting customers to come on board is not really enough to drive the consumption. So we have had to be quite creative when it comes to what additional services can we wrap around the Zadara cloud infrastructure to really drive that additional revenue and to really drive the additional consumption. So what we're going to share with you today are some of our learnings. We're going to share with you the services that we offer. How do we help Zadara partners like yourself deliver these value add services that are built on top of Zadara? And how do we take out the complexity of running and operating all of these environments for you? So without further ado, I'm just going to dive right in. If you have any questions, drop it into the Q&A box. We're here to answer all your questions. So Arrosoft was founded on three key criteria. Firstly, we are very focused around data, the protection of data and the storing of data. So our business is really about how do we help our partners protect your customers' data with the end goal of being able to help your customers recover their businesses and also to empower our partners like those of you in this room to deliver these services in a manner that is low cost, low risk, and you don't have to take on any of the burdens of operating or hiring people or learning new skill sets. So over the next few slides, you'll kind of hear what these services are that we help our partners to build, especially on top of the Zadara Cloud infrastructure, and also how we empower you to really go to market quickly without too much risk or investment to really help you to do these additional services without too much hassle. Okay. Arrosoft today, we are present in each of these blue pins. So our global headquarters are in the US, and we have an Asia Pacific HQ in Taiwan. And we also have team members and staff in Japan, in Singapore, in Malaysia, where I am, in Vietnam, where Danny and Truk are based, and also in India, we have an R&D and a support team. But if you see all these other red pins around the world, all of the rest of these red pins are Arrosoft presence through our partners like Touchnet. For example, Touchnet has really helped us to open up the entire Africa continent, and today we're doing opportunities with them in places like South Africa, where they're based, in Mozambique, in Ethiopia, in Zambia, Nigeria, so on and so forth. So we work very, very closely with the Zadara partner ecosystem. We have solutions that are designed specifically around Zadara, and we also have a lot of really good wins and case studies with the Zadara cloud infrastructure that I will spend a little bit of time telling you about over the next few slides. So, sorry, wrong button. So Arrosoft today, we are not only about Zadara, we are actually also independent software developers. So based on what we see in the market and the gaps that we identify, we have also come out with specific solutions that address some of these challenges that were not easily met with other off-the-shelf solutions. So we'll talk a bit about about these three solutions over the next few slides. But solutions like Arrosoft Cloud Annie, which is our cloud migration and disaster recovery tool. Solutions like AirGap, which is our ransomware protection solution. And Arrosoft Stealth, which is our cybersecurity solution, all really help to not only solve your customers' problems, but really to give additional capabilities that were non-existent before we developed this software. The company is not big. We are about 70% of our teams are engineers and architects, and we really rely on a true partner go-to-market strategy where we rely on our partners in each of these countries to do the sales, to open the doors, to own the customer relationships. And then Arrosoft comes in behind the partner as your expert, as your SWAT team to really enable our partners around the world to do much more than what they are capable on their own. We support some of the largest SIs in the world. Some of the large SIs in the US, like Presidio, like CDW, are Arrosoft partners. And we are also very focused not only around ransomware protection and readiness, but also in terms of cybersecurity and recovery, where we protect over 100,000 VMs since our inception in 2014. So in terms of the Arrosoft product portfolio, it is divided into 4 key pillars, and these 4 pillars are all surrounding data. So the first pillar is obviously the production, where data lives on a day-to-day basis. And as I mentioned earlier, we are big Zadara partners. We operate the Zadara vStorage Cloud in Taiwan, Taipei, right? And Zadara forms the foundation of many of our service offerings. Now, after the data is stored in the production environment in the Zadara Cloud, we are also very focused around the data protection aspect, which is the backup and the disaster recovery. And in that area, we carry nearly all the big brands of backup solutions and disaster recovery solutions, brands such as Veeam, Commvault, Acronis, Druva, Cohesity, and of course, our own Cloud Any. And in the cyber protection space, because today you really can't talk about securing data without talking about cybersecurity, we have also got some very strong solutions in our own Arrosoft Stealth, Arrosoft AirGap. We use SentinelOne as our endpoint detection and response. And then we also have attack surface management using Arctic Security. One of the key aspects of working with Arrosoft is not only do we provide the software or the solution licenses, we also provide the end-to-end services, not only to help you build or start the business, but to handhold you throughout the entire business journey up to a point where your team, our partners' team, are comfortable to take over and operate it on their own. So working with Arrosoft, you are not stuck with an Arrosoft services contract forever. It is our aim to make it easy for you to start by having Arrosoft operate the services for you in the early stages. At the same time, train your team to eventually, after 18, 24 months, to take over the day-to-day operations. And then the Arrosoft team will step back and play more of an L2, L3 support role to be the SWAT team behind the partner. So as we like to say, we empower our partners. The empowerment comes not only in terms of the commercial, where we remove the risk of doing this business, but also in terms of the technical, where we take on the heavy lifting, help you do the design, help you do the day-to-day, and also train our partners' teams to eventually take over on their own. In terms of working with Arrosoft, as you all know, many of the software vendors in the world today are now moving into an MSP model or a subscription model. And this MSP and subscription model has really changed the game and kind of disrupted how SIs and partners sell these solutions to the market. In the past, SIs would rely on deal registrations to ensure they get opportunity protection and to get the best price for the opportunity. But as the sales models have moved into subscription, into MSP models, those deal registrations have gone away. What's become critical is how much can that partner commit upfront to these vendors for them to get a good discount. So, a big global SI with a lot of volume would obviously be able to commit a lot more revenue to, vendors like Veeam and Commvault. And with that big commitment, they get large discounts upfront, and that helps them win more deals. Smaller SIs or smaller partners find themselves handicapped at this because they don't have that size of volume compared to the big guys. They can't make those commitments, and therefore they become less competitive in their markets. What we have done in Arrosoft is we have made these global commitments. We have received these exciting discounts based on our commits, and we pass these discounts back to our partners to make them more competitive for these solutions that we carry. So, for example, our Veeam commit is very, very large and makes us one of the lower priced Veeam MSPs in the world. Our Commvault pricing, I would say, is probably number 2 or number 3 cheapest in the world based on the volume that we have with them. And also for all of these different brands, we are not only large MSP providers and aggregators for them, but also because of our size of business with these vendors, we get the discounts that we pass on back to you. So this helps our partners not only make them more competitive, but they also de-risk because they are not caught in the middle of frequent price changes. They are not stuck with having to buy in bulk or having to, buy as a pack rather than single units, because we have made those commitments. We can sell it as single units to you to make it much more flexible. Okay, so with all of these de-risking and empowerment, de-risking the commercial, empowering the technical, that's how we help our partners really build up and additional services and help them to build up their managed services built on top of these solutions and Zadara infrastructure. So here's a list of some of the large partners that we work with throughout the world, but there's a story of one particular partner that I really want to share with you, kind of to set the stage and to give you the vision of where Arrosoft can really bring you. What does the end of that journey with Arrosoft really look like? So the story that we want to share is a company in Taiwan called DigiWin. Now, DigiWin is actually not a cloud provider. They're actually a ERP SaaS software provider, right? And they are one of the largest ERP SaaS in the Greater China area. They have about 60,000 individual customers, large and small, right? And they provide ERP services to them. So what happened was that DigiWin kept getting calls from their customers who were hit by ransomware, and they called DigiWin to help them to restore data. Now, DigiWin being an ERP SaaS provider, they are a software player. They did not protect the customers' data by default, and that was the customer's responsibility. At one point, DigiWin started getting about 10 calls per day to restore data, and they thought, hey, maybe there's an opportunity to make some revenue here. So they came to Arrosoft and they said, is there a way we can work together? Can you help DigiWin build a backup as a service where you do all the work and provide everything, but we go sell it? And then if the customer needs anything, whether it's a restore or anything, Arrosoft will do it for us. And that's exactly what we did. So Arrosoft came in, we provided the infrastructure, which was Zadara in Taiwan, right? So the Z Compute and the Z Storage. We provided the software licenses. So we built basically a backup as a service for DigiWin, where we would take the customer's data, back it up using Veeam into Zadara, and everything was managed by Arrosoft. So DigiWin as a software company didn't need to hire anybody. They didn't need to learn how to use Veeam. They didn't need to buy servers, or they didn't need to even pay upfront for any kind of infrastructure. Everything was built up in pay-per-use packages based on what the customer wanted to install. All DigiWin had to do was create a checkbox in their subscription portal. Do you want to back up your data? Customers check that. The system generates a PO, sends it over to Arrosoft. We do the work. And if the customer runs into any issues they need to restore, they call Arrosoft. Arrosoft restores for them. So DigiWin basically got a new line of business, which is backup. They receive the revenue. Arrosoft provides hardware, software, and services. And when they receive the revenue, they take their profit, they pass us their costs. No risk to them. We do all the work. This started 4 years ago. They were so happy with this model that eventually they came back and they said, hey, what else can we do that looks similar to this? So over the last 4 years, we have steadily grown our business with them, right? And to the point now, we do not only backup as a service, we do ransomware protection as a service, we do disaster recovery as a service, and also very recently, we added endpoint protection as a service using all of these different solutions. So if you ask me what is the end goal of partnering with Arrosoft, this is the end goal. It is not about buying a software license. It is not about a one-time interaction. It really is about building a partnership with a technology partner like Arrosoft that can help you open up new channels of revenue built on top of your Zadara infrastructure to drive the consumption of the Zadara infrastructure, and you don't need to invest in the software or invest in the skill sets. Arrosoft comes in and does everything for you. So in a nutshell, this is the end game that we're all aiming for, right? And that's what we're here to talk about. So over the next few slides, we're going to be talking about these 4 use cases, right? And these are very designed around Zadara. And this is from our own personal experience as well. So as we started moving our customers into Zadara, we realized that, okay, we've got the customer there now. And as we know, customers' infrastructure really doesn't grow that quickly, right? You know, once they come on, maybe they'll have 5-8% growth in a year. And that's not really sufficient for us to grow our business. So we have to be creative to look at the new ways and the new things that we could put on top of Zadara to drive additional revenue with the same set of customers. How do we do more without having to find new customers every time? And that's how this entire, solution set was designed. So the first and foremost, the use case number 1 is we'll talk about cloud migration and disaster recovery. Obviously, we have to have a simple way to get that customer into Zadara, right? And once they're inside, we want to also offer them the capability to do disaster recovery. And the solution that we'll talk about to achieve that is called Arrosoft Cloud Annie. It's our own in-house solution. Now we've got the customer onboarded. They are already in Zadara Cloud. And obviously, every customer needs to have backup. You know, if they're not backing up with you, they're doing it on their own. So why not create a backup as a service? And the backup as a service has the additional advantage of driving the consumption of your Zadara storage, right? We'll show you what are the solutions we can build around this backup as a service or BaaS, and we'll show you how Arrosoft helps you to differentiate your BaaS offering compared to all of the other BaaS players who may be operating in your market. Then something that's very top of mind in most countries, and I'm sure Africa is no different, right, is ransomware. Everyone's talking about ransomware. Everybody's worried about ransomware. And we see more and more national cybersecurity laws demanding customers to take additional steps to protect against ransomware. One of the offerings that we have built on Zadara is called ransomware protection as a service. And this not only drives the backup as a service story, it also drives the consumption of Zadara storage. And we achieve this through 2 Arrosoft solutions. Firstly, Arrosoft AirGap and Arrosoft Stealth. So we'll talk a bit about that. And of course, last but not least, cybersecurity is top of mind for everybody, right? But as cloud operators, cybersecurity is not really in our area of expertise, right? And if we think about it, if I want to be a cybersecurity player, I've got to have a SOC, I've got to have a 24/7 team of security engineers monitoring my customers' assets. And that's not only expensive because security engineers are not easy to hire, it's also very time consuming and very risky. So what we have done is we have come up with our own offering that we call the Z Compute Managed Detection and Response, where we come in, we provide the software to protect and monitor your customers' Z Compute VMs, and we provide the SOC and the engineers who do that monitoring and remediation, right? So it's basically an entire SOC capability, MDR monitoring built around the industry best SentinelOne solution, but Arrosoft does all the heavy lifting. So this just becomes a very simple additional revenue stream for partners like yourself or cloud service providers. So this is the high level view. I'm going to go to each one of these over the next 40 minutes or so, and then we're going to go and talk about the solutions and how it differentiates. Okay, so without further ado, I'm just going to hop straight into cloud migration NDR. So one of the challenges that we face when it comes to moving our customers' VMs into Zadara is that firstly, Zadara is not very well known, right? And let's all be honest, all Zadara partners here, the Zadara migration tools aren't the easiest to work with, okay? And that sometimes becomes a showstopper. So, so what we had to do was we had to kind of go back to the drawing board and think about what is the best way of doing this. What if we could create a tool that could take away the uncertainty of migration, that would support the most scenarios as well as the most cloud environments, right? It also addresses some of the major cloud migration challenges, for example, complexity of VMware or any hypervisor, right? That includes discovery and dependency discovery. So finding out what are the unknown dependencies, that is sometimes very complex. Networking is always the biggest challenge when it comes to migrating. Can you migrate from a VMware, a distributed switch model into a Zadara VPC model? How do you do that? And of course, the time factor, right? Not only are the third-party tools sometimes very difficult to use, some of them are very slow. Many customers think that they can get away with using a backup software as a migration tool. And then when they actually start doing it, they find that their project starts to drag on, right? And really take, 300 to 500% longer to complete, right? And really, different clouds require different tools. And I'm sure many of you as cloud partners may be working with more than one cloud platform, maybe not just as Zadara, and your teams have had to learn many different migration tools and solutions just to support the cloud platforms that you work with. And every time a customer asks for a new cloud platform, you've got to go out there, look for new tools, learn them, train with them before you can actually use them. And that creates a lot of complexity as well as takes away a lot of time, and there's a cost element to that as well. So what we did was we basically looked at creating a software that could migrate from any to any cloud. And that's what Cloud Any is, right? So as the name implies, it can migrate anything, whether it's a VM or a cloud instance or a bare metal server, whether it's Windows or Linux, and migrate it into any one of these 20, in fact, today it's probably 22 supported clouds. We've added a few new ones over the last 6 to 8 months. What that means is today, not only can you do a VMware migration into Zadara, you could also do a Azure DR into Zadara. We have partners who are providing in-country DR services where they take an out-of-country AWS instance and then use Cloud Any to DR it into Zadara that's in-country to provide some kind of in-country disaster recovery capability. So the possibilities are quite limitless. I'll kind of walk you through what are some of these scenarios. But Cloud Any is basically a single tool. It's a replication engine tool that is designed to work with any one of these cloud platforms to give you new abilities, not only to migrate workloads into Zadara, but to open up a whole new area of business called disaster recovery as a service, where your Zadara cloud can now be the DR target of anything out there, whether it's a bare metal server, a VMware VM, a Hyper-V VM, a Nutanix VM, or an Azure instance or a Google instance, everything coming into your Zadara cloud as a disaster recovery environment. And there's a lot of flexibility there. Okay, so here are some of the popular use cases. Obviously, migration and DR, VMware to any cloud, any cloud to any cloud. We can even do multi-cloud migrations. So the power of Cloud Any is that it really takes away the skill set that you need, right? With Cloud Any, because everything is API based and API integrated, you only need to learn how to use Cloud Any as a tool, and Cloud Any will take care of all of the back end processes, whether it's talking to VMware, talking to OpenStack, talking to Azure, talking to AWS. As far as the Cloud Any user interface is concerned, it's standardized, it's common, you learn one tool. We also had, in fact, a customer who taught us this use case. They started using Cloud Any to migrate legacy applications out of legacy hardware no longer with maintenance into VMware and Zadara. So they don't have to reinstall the OS, they don't have to rebuild the applications, they don't have to back up and restore the data. They use Cloud Any to package the entire old application in the old server, package it, and then move it into their hypervisor or cloud of choice and make it very simple. Cloud Any can also help with large size of data migrations. We had a project where we proposed to a bank in the Philippines to have Cloud Any take replicate the large amount of data into physical disks, ship those disks to the end destination in a different country, right? Much like AWS Snowball, and then do a second replication in country on land at very high speeds. So this not only reduces the time taken, it reduces the cloud egress data charges as well. So there are many ways that we can use Cloud Any, but for the purpose of this webinar, we'll focus on backup as a service, migration and disaster recovery as a service. So Cloud Any is an agent-based replication and migration software. What it does is it does a disk-to-disk replication. What that means is every virtual disk that's attached to a VM or an instance, that disk will be replicated in its entirety into Zadara. An exact copy of the production or the source disk will be created in Zadara, in the Zadara QCOW2 format, and it can be attached to a VM to run as an identical VM. We do block level replication. So this is not only much faster, it's also much more reliable. And the delta changes, the delta syncs become much faster because we only send the change blocks. We can do delta change only. And to save time and to reduce cloud egress charges, we can also skip deleted and excluded files. Synchronization is asynchronous. So replication is asynchronous. We recommend as low as 15 minutes. The actual Cloud Any replication engine can go as low as 1 minute. Okay, but generally due to WAN and due to network limitations and also disk write performance limitations, we recommend nothing lower than 15 minutes. But 15 minutes RPO is actually already very, very good and good enough for most disaster recovery scenarios. It is certainly much better than using backup, which is an RPO of typically 24 hours. Cloud Any is designed to work in, I would say, poor bandwidth environments. So not only can we adjust threads, so if you have more bandwidth, Cloud Any will spin up more threads to make the replication faster. Or if you have poor bandwidth, it will reduce the number of threads so that while the replication will take longer, it actually will complete rather than get stuck, right? And anytime a line drops or something interrupts the replication, Cloud Any is designed to have an automated retry. And this alone is one of the big differentiators. We have had many partners who have used other solutions come and tell us that when they started using Cloud Any, they were so surprised that they did not need to have a technician sitting in front of the computer monitoring that percentage bar, because for the other tools, every time it failed, somebody only found out about it the next morning when they came in, and then they had to click on retry again. Whereas with Cloud Any, anytime the line drops, Cloud Any just retries automatically, it saved them so much time on just this one feature alone, right? Cloud Any is designed to work in all internet scenarios, whether it's RDP, HTTPS, VPN, WAN, all works, internet works, high latency bandwidth works. And it's also designed to be very simple to use and very low resource. So while replication is going on, CPU utilization on the source VM is very low. There is no need to bring down the source VM to replicate. Business as usual on the source VM, right? And because of the API integration and the automation that we have included, you actually don't even need to have a lot of cloud skill sets because all of that is done in the background. And of course, it has to be secure. So we have encryption, we have compression, and then we have API security integrated into Cloud Any. So Cloud Any is really a robust enterprise class data migration and disaster recovery platform. So how does it work? What does the Cloud Any architecture look like? So the way that Cloud Any works is that in the Zadara Z Compute environment, which is on the target side, you need to spin up a Cloud Any server and a management console. So this Cloud Any server and management console becomes the conversion tool that will convert whatever is on the source side into the target Zadara format. On the source side, we can support any kind of VM, bare metal server, it may even be a cloud instance as long as it's running on Windows or Linux. So on the source VM, we will need to install an agent called the CA source. And the CA source will integrate with the OS, read the blocks, send the blocks over the internet to the CA server, where the CA server will convert the data into the Zadara format, create an EBS volume disk, and then attach that identical copy disk to a Zadara VM and run it as a Zadara VM. So what you start off with is a source VM. The VM has disks, all the disks have the data, and Cloud Any will basically create an identical copy of that VM with identical copies of all of those VM disks and attach it to that Zadara VM and run it as a Zadara VM. The output is a spun up running VM in Z Compute. Okay, so it doesn't get really any simpler than that. There's no manual command line, there's no manual conversion, there's no lots of weird commands that you need to run or intermediary steps. Everything is taken care of by Cloud Any. We can also use Cloud Any for environments without direct internet access. So sometimes the customers don't want to expose that certain particular VMs directly into internet. What we can do is we can create a CA server instance in the source environment, and this CA server becomes a proxy gateway, and all of the VMs and the agents will talk to this CA server, and it's only this CA server that is exposed to internet and connects with the CA server in the Zadara cloud. So this ensures that the customer's VMs are always not directly exposed to internet for whatever security reasons that they may have. For VMware, we have made it even easier. So for VMware, we can do what we call an agentless replication. So with VMware, we do not even need to install the CA source agent into the VMs. We will spin up a CA server on the source side. We will integrate through API with vCenter or ESX, and this CA server will act as the read the data blocks, send it over to the Zadara CA server for it to be converted into the Z Compute VM. Now, one time running of this is a migration. A continuous running, continuous syncing is ADR. So whether it's using Cloud Any for migration or for disaster recovery, The basic replication technology is the same, right? The licenses differ depending on whether you're using it for a short period of time for a migration project or for a long period of time as a constant replicated disaster recovery environment. So the skills that you learn running Cloud Any applies to both migration and DR and any cloud that you want to use or support in the future. So what is the Cloud Any advantage? Basically, for VMware migration, right, it's agentless for VMware, makes it very easy to move workloads into Zadara. It is cloud agnostic. You can move it into Zadara or any cloud that you want. No command line required, right? We have done the API integration. We have even integrated not only into Zadara VPC, but even into Zadara distributed switch, vSwitch, right? So all Zadara networking topologies are supported. And you don't need to know to learn all of the command lines, just use the drop-down menus and the API integration. Minimal downtime, I'll show you a slide later how much faster we do it, right? Automation reduces human error. And the best part about Cloud Any is that you can test to your heart's content. There are some tools in the market that charge you based on the number of times you migrate. So if, for example, you have one pair of VMs, one VM to migrate, you make a mistake the first time and you try it a second time, you have to pay for 2 licenses. So with Cloud Any, it's unlimited tests. You can do a test, you can sync, you don't like it, destroy it, do it again until you're happy with the end result, right? And that will only take you that one single license. Security is very important. So Cloud Any is end-to-end encrypted, and of course, it is much, much faster than using the backup and restore method. So we talked about faster than using a backup and restore method. Well, we did our own internal testing because earlier we are also Veeam experts. So we actually did a face-off of if we're going to migrate 100 gig VM using Veeam and using Cloud Any, what are the differences? So you can see here the complexity, the amount of steps you have to do and the time taken just to install and configure Veeam is much, much longer, nearly 10 times longer than configuring Cloud Any, which is much faster. And then every VM that needs to be migrated takes a much longer time with Veeam compared to using Cloud Any. So the net result is that when we did our own tests, right, equal to equal, same size VM, moving from VMware into Zadara Cloud, the Cloud Any tool was 350% faster. Now, if you're moving 5 VMs, sure, customer already has Veeam, use Veeam, right? But if you're moving a much larger environment, 100, 200, 500 VMs, and the customer wants to ensure that they're done properly and there's a limited amount of time to do it, right? Then definitely a tool like Cloud Any that can give you the ability to automate and to do parallel movements will make that project finish so much faster and so much more reliably. So we also have Cloud Any in terms of disaster recovery as a service, where we can provide RPO, RTO at around 15 minutes. So one of the advantages of having disaster recovery with Cloud Any is that in the industry today, right, DR is typically either done by application layer, which is very expensive and very limited to specific applications, or the customers have to use backup solutions as the DR tool, meaning they replicate that backup to a different site, and if something were to go wrong, they will restore from the backup and run that VM. The challenge with using backup as a disaster recovery tool is the RPO, RTO. So not only do you backup once a day, so the RPO, the recovery point, or the data loss is up to 24 hours, but restoring from a backup can actually take a very long time. So the business has to suffer, many hours of downtime per VM. Then it might take them not only hours, or sometimes days, just to get the VMs back up and running. So we have found that Cloud Any fits very nicely in a niche where customers' applications don't have a built-in DR capability, or they can't afford it, and backup DR using backup software is taking too long, then Cloud Any is a really good fit. So we can DR for any VM or physical server running Windows or Linux. We can DR into Zadara Cloud, and with RPO, RTO around 15 minutes. So 15 minutes is fantastic in terms of providing a DR service. So we have some partners who have actually turned this into an entire line of business, disaster recovery as a service into Zadara Cloud, right? Using Cloud Any as that replication mechanism. So with that, I want to move on to the next part. So now you have managed to use Cloud Any to bring your customers' VMs into Zadara. You have convinced them to use your Zadara Cloud as a disaster recovery platform. What next? Generally, most cloud providers will be like, okay, I'm done, right? I can't do anything more with this customer. They are already in my cloud. I'm going to go look for a new customer. So what we have found is that now that you have this customer already in your cloud, it's much easier to sell to an existing customer than to find a new customer. So one of the things that you can sell to them is backup as a service. Okay. So many customers today either don't have backup when they go to the cloud, or they assume that the cloud service provider is providing the backup for them. And sometimes the cloud service providers may provide a snapshot-based backup, and Zadara has that as well, and it's fantastic. But for some customers, that snapshot-based backup is insufficient, especially if they have compliance, if they need to store data more than a few days, right? They need to store months and months of data for recovery reasons. Then it becomes very difficult without some form of true backup solution. So what we help our partners do is we take your Zadara Cloud, we come in and we build that backup as a service environment in your Zadara Cloud. So it will consume your Z Compute, it will consume your Zadara storage, and we provide the software licenses and also the operational skill set. So this BaaS, backup as a service environment in your cloud, can be used to protect the users in your cloud. Your customers who have a Z Compute VM, who have Z storage, we can first and foremost protect them with this BaaS. Then beyond that, we can open up this BaaS to protecting customers on-prem environment, meaning taking a copy of their VMware and backing it up into your cloud, and that drives more Z storage consumption, or even taking a copy of your customers' public cloud services, their AWS, their Azure, their Microsoft 365, their Google Workspace, and taking backups of those into your Zadara Z storage environment. So as you can see, each one of these is a new stream of revenue that will not only increase your profitability, but also drive the consumption of your Zadara Cloud. Okay. So in Arrosoft, we don't only carry one single brand of software. We work with all of the best in the industry. So as you can see here, that as far as the Gartner Magic Quadrant is concerned, the leaders and visionaries, we cover about 90% of the solutions here, right? Many partners ask me, hey, Arrosoft, why do you need to have so many solutions? Why not pick one or two and go with that? So what we have found is that, firstly, as we enter the market and we want to take additional copies of data, we have to see what on-prem backup solutions the customers are already using, because we can't ask them to change to what we have. So if they're having a Commvault, I need to be able to build a Commvault BaaS. If they have a Veeam, I need to be able to build a Veeam BaaS, right? If they have Cohesity, I need to be able to build Cohesity for them. So from this requirements of our many customers, we have actually learned and built the skill sets that we need to support all of these different brands. These different brands also give us a lot of flexibility in how we want to position our products. So Arrosoft now becomes a brand agnostic data protection consultant. We have the ability to advise our customers what is the best fit solution for them depending on their environment, because we carry all the brands. So for example, when we talk to large enterprise customers who have very complex environments, who not only have on-premise VMware, they may have Unix, they may have enterprise application ERP like SAP, like Oracle, they may have cloud presence, then Commvault becomes a very good fit, right? If they have requirements for data archival, for e-discovery, for compliance, Commvault becomes a great fit. For small, medium enterprise who are very invested into hypervisors like VMware, who also use some cloud presence, right? Veeam is a good fit. Or if for our telco partners who want something that is low cost but can protect mobile devices like Android, like iOS, then we would normally recommend Acronis because that's a multi-tenanted environment fully in the cloud running as SaaS, right? And they have great support for all of these endpoints at a very good price. So what I'm trying to say is that we have the ability to meet any of your customers' requirements because we have skill sets as well as licenses across this full range of solutions. So we can propose the best fit. But where we really come in as Arrosoft is in our services, skill sets, and capabilities. And this is really our secret sauce. And this is where we really help you to differentiate yourselves from all of the other run-of-the-mill backup as a service providers that could be playing in your market. So because we work with customers large and small, for example, our largest customer is a US bank, and we protect about 30,000 devices for them. And we also have very small customers in smaller countries where we do several hundred devices. But what is consistent about Arrosoft is the quality of the work that we provide. So whether you are a 30,000 endpoint customer or a 300 endpoint customer, you still enjoy the same skill sets, you enjoy the same backup success rate, you enjoy the same SOPs that were created by certified experts. Those SOPs that we use to run the large banks are also used to run the small companies. So this really helps you set yourself apart, right? To really bring down these enterprise class skill sets, enterprise class knowledge into any size of customer in your environment. But it doesn't just end there. Arrosoft also performs a lot of value add services that are unique to us because these are skills and in fact, methodologies that we developed over the last 14 years that we've been in operation. So for example, things such as backup health checks, backup security audits, backup capacity planning, right? RPO, RTO tracking, regular restore testing, DR drills, ransomware recovery testing. These are all included as a part of our Arrosoft managed backup as a service. And when you put these capabilities into your brochures and data sheets, that really helps you to set yourself apart from the other competitors that are playing in your market, who are just you doing like simple backup. I'll take a copy of your data and that's that, right? This really differentiates us from all of the other small players. So Arrosoft operational excellence obviously applies to all of our customers, large or small, right? So some of the things that we do that are quite unique is that not only do we provide backup, we provide up to a 1 hour response time for high severity issues. All of our operators, our technicians are all certified engineers. So you are dealing with the people who are, I would say, L3 at the principal level. And anything that we cannot fix in-house, we generally go direct to the principal vendor's development team. So our relationships are so close that we have access to direct development teams from many of these vendors. We do vendor coordination. So Arrosoft owns the problem issue from start to end, right? And of course, to always ensure that not only is your data recoverable when you need it, we do a lot of testing, but we also simplify reporting. So we do reporting not only in terms of reporting to IT who want to see all the details, but we also can provide business level reporting to management so that they can only see the critical information to ensure that they know that the environment is running smoothly. Another thing that we do is health check analysis. So health check analysis not only talks about the health of the software, but really the health of the end-to-end architecture that includes the software, the hardware, the network, the RPO, RTOs, the SLAs, the security testing. We even designed our own methodology to do security audits to ensure that the environment is as safe as it can be from cyber attacks, from ransomware attacks, that we have enabled all of the recommended security options and settings that the vendor recommends to protect your backup environment. So all of these are done on a periodic basis to ensure the continued health of the backup environment. As far as testing goes, testing is very important. You always want to ensure that the data that you have protected is available to restore when you need it to, right? Then the only way to do that is really to constantly test, and that includes ransomware recovery testing and disaster recovery testing to ensure that if any of these scenarios were to happen, not only can you rely on your backups being there and able to recover, but also to give the customer's backup teams the ability to practice these recoveries so that they know what to do when a bad situation arises. Okay, so that's backup as a service, and we've talked about how Arrosoft's additional value and capabilities really help our partners to kind of differentiate themselves from all of the rest of the smaller BaaS players in your market. So backup is done, right? We're sold backup, customer already has backup with us. What else can we sell? So ransomware is always a big top of mind for most customers anywhere in the world, right? Big or small, every customer is worried about ransomware. So let's use that to advantage. So one of the things that we have seen a recurring theme in the market, and this is not just according to Arrosoft, this is according to even the backup players themselves, is that ransomware actors are actually actively targeting the backups. So Veeam reported that 9 out of 10 ransomware attacks, the attackers actively hunted for and tried to damage the backup repository. So yes, now you have a copy of the backup in your BaaS, but to really be extra safe from ransomware, we should provide an additional service called ransomware protection as a service. And that's where we come into this particular area, right? So the solution, so what we want to do with ransomware protection as a service is really to comply to the recommended 3211 backup rule. So the 3211 backup rule basically states that you have 3 copies of data on 2 different media. 1 copy must be immutable or cannot be deleted, and 1 copy must be offline or air gap. Now, in the past where customers were backing up to tape, when you remove the tape from the library, the tape is automatically air gap. It's offline. The data can't be touched because it's not even connected. But today, as we back up to disk, as we do snapshots, as we back up to cloud repositories like S3, how do you offline those? And that's where Arrosoft came in. So we saw the gap and we decided that there needs to be ability to get our customers to meet this 3211 again. So the challenges that we saw when we created Arrosoft Air Gap was that backup is not a very smart software. It takes an extra copy of data, but it really doesn't know what is backing up. A lot of times, backup will continue to back up corrupted or malwares together with the data. And the other problem with backup software is that it doesn't know it's under attack. So if the backup is being corrupted, backup will still continue to run. There's no alert. Okay. Many customers rely purely on some network security tool as their entire cybersecurity strategy, right? And that's not quite sufficient anymore because network security literally only looks at network. It doesn't look at the data, right? And it doesn't know whether the data is under attack. So when Arrosoft created Arrosoft Air Gap, it's not meant to replace backup. Instead, it integrates and works with backup. It integrates and works with EDR solutions, right? And what Arrosoft AirGap does is it takes an extra copy of data, it makes that data immutable, and it will air gap that data so that it cannot be easily found or attacked. And it also protects the backup database and catalogs so that in the event your production backup servers are destroyed or corrupted, you can still rebuild those servers from the database and catalogs that are kept in AirGap. But we also need to actively know when an attack is occurring so that we can actively lock and hide that data. So let me kind of show you how this works in a typical scenario, right? So if you look at your general customer, right, any customer will be similar to this. They have their primary site, they have their production data, their servers and their VMs. And they will take a backup using one of these backup software into the first copy of backup, which is on-premise at their data center, and this could be disk. Many customers will have a second site, maybe a DR site, and they will push a second copy of the backup data into the second site. So this becomes an identical copy of the first site, right? So the problem occurs when attackers have found the production data, they may have damaged, encrypted, or corrupted it. Backup will continue to back up that corrupted data into your first copy. Your first copy will push that corrupted data into your second copy. So backup software, by virtue of simply doing its job, has now taken and spread corrupted, encrypted data everywhere. No harm, no fault, right? That's what they're designed to do. So for us to ensure that we always have a good, clean copy of data that we can recover from, we have to change this up. So first and foremost, we don't want to have this push relationship anymore. We break that and we put an air gap server here as the gatekeeper of the data that can go into the secondary site. We want to turn the secondary site into a vault, an air gap vault. And this vault basically has to ensure that the data that is coming in here is good and clean. We don't want corrupted data coming into the vault. And the vault has to be able to be secured, okay? So to ensure that, we turn this into a pool relationship where the air gap server will integrate using API through any one of these 6 backup solutions. It will tell these solutions when to send a copy of data into the air gap vault. And before it allows that sending, air gap will check the production data. So air gap will implant sensors into the production data, and it will monitor the production data. At the moment that it notices that the production data is under attack or being encrypted, or there could be a ransomware attack going on, AirGap will actively lock the vault. So what it has assumed is that when the sensors are triggered, that there's an attack going on in the production site, AirGap will lock and hide the AirGap vault to ensure that, number one, attackers cannot find the vault and destroy it. And number two, to keep out encrypted or corrupted data to ensure that all the data in here is good and clean. To do that, we create this AirGap lock through logical firewall configuration. In fact, this lock happens all the time when there's no data being pulled. So when data is sending over, it's open. After data is sent, it's closed. And anytime a sensor triggers an attack, it is closed. So this vault is locked in its own zero trust network environment. It's got its own credentials. It's got its own RBAC. It's got its own multi-factor authentication. So basically, whenever it's locked, it assumes that the entire production site is untrustworthy. Active Directory admin also cannot go inside here. It will have its own RBAC. The whole idea is that to keep the AirGap vault clean and secure so that you can either later on open it and restore back to production or restore it in your Zadara environment and run that as your DR recovery site. Okay. So we built AirGap around the NIST security framework. So not only do we have the ability to identify which data is critical to protect, we have the ability to protect that data, to use our sensors to detect an ongoing attack, to respond by locking away the data, and then the Arrosoft team will also come in to help you to do your recovery services. So not only is it a solution to protect the data, but it really is an end-to-end NIST-based framework to protect your customers' data from ransomware attacks. Okay, so for AirGap to work, we need to have that backup as a service in place. So you see how the layers and layers of solutions build on top of each other. Another new solution that we recently brought to the market is called Arrosoft Stealth. And Arrosoft Stealth has a unique way of protecting your customers' data. So this is a separate solution, right? So Arrosoft Stealth, as the name implies, protects assets by hiding them. So it can protect your servers by hiding the servers so that any unauthorized users cannot find the server. It can protect your data by actually hiding the data so that it cannot be found and only legitimate users with the legitimate access can see the data. And it also protects the access into critical systems by adding additional layers of authentication. Now, we know that in most of the cyber attacks, the first thing that fails is the identity service, is the Active Directory, right? Somebody breaks in, they get access to AD, they create admin credentials for themselves, and then after that, everything Bob's your uncle, they are everywhere. So we don't trust AD when it's during an active attack. So we assume that even insiders could be threats in the network. So what Arrosoft does is basically, if you look at this example, and I'm going to use Veeam as an example here, right? Typically, for you to manage Veeam, you have a Veeam management console and an IP address. Your admin will log into the IP address and they have full access to Veeam. And a lot of times, this login is probably even tied to their Active Directory. So one Active Directory password, they get inside, they can do whatever they want in Veeam, including destroy the Veeam backups. So if we want to protect Veeam management console, we hide the management console in a self-defense area behind a logical firewall. And this logical firewall is designed to deny all, except the security broker. So anybody who wants to talk to the Veeam management console has to do it through the security broker or a tunnel server. On the admin side, right, we add additional layers of authentication and protection. The first layer is we want to have a device authentication. So we have a passport agent that is installed into the admin's actual laptop that allows this laptop to talk to the security broker. Anyone without this passport agent would not even be able to find the security broker. This is your device authentication. Then once they get the security broker, they have an additional password and two-factor authentication linked to their mobile device before they can talk into the Veeam server and input the Veeam IP address. So this second layer is your user authentication. Now, an attacker who might be already in the network, actively looking for your Veeam server to destroy your Veeam backups, right? They will start to look for the Veeam IP, but they can't find it because, again, it's hidden behind this logical firewall and they can't get in. Now, maybe they know there's some kind of security broker and they try to communicate with the security broker, but because they don't have the passport agent in their laptop, they can't get in. Maybe we have a really smart hacker here. Maybe he knows that I've got to physically go to the admin's physical device, which has passport installed. And from there, he can now find and talk to the security broker. But when he tries to get through the firewall, he still doesn't have the admin's credentials or 2FA. So he's still blocked. And Arrosoft Stealth is smart enough to log the failed attempts and alert the admin that, hey, something is going on, right? There's someone using your credentials to try to log in and they failed a few times. So all of this will help to prevent even attackers who are already inside the network, including insider threats, from getting into your management consoles, your application servers, your VMware vCenter servers, your whatever it may be to protect them. Arrosoft Stealth can also hide data. So rather than to have data in plain sight in your file servers, Arrosoft Stealth is designed to hide the data on an OS kernel level by integrating with the kernel driver. What this means is once a piece of data, it could be a file, it could be folders, it could be a set of folders. Once it's set as hidden inside Arrosoft Stealth, even if the user goes into Windows Show Hidden Files, it won't appear. So this is through the OS kernel itself. And again, any legitimate user who wants to access this hidden data would need to have security broker or passport, would need to have the passport agent, the self-defense agent, sorry, to get access to view the hidden files. So what this means is that any data that is private and confidential or sensitive, hide it so that attackers who are even actively looking for it cannot find it at all. So we use stealth as a multi-layer approach to protect the critical servers in the environment. For example, if we want to protect, we can use stealth to protect Active Directory, your web servers, your database servers, right, or your backup repositories by hiding those important files from being easily found or destroyed. Then we can also use Arrosoft Stealth to protect the access to critical management servers like your vCenter server, your backup server, so that the management ports cannot be easily accessed and unwanted attackers can go inside and start to do damage to the whole environment. So depending on what use case your customers may have, we can use Arrosoft Stealth to help protect them from ransomware attackers and also from internal threats. So that's an extra layer of protection against ransomware. And then last but not least, we get into what we call the MDR, or Managed Detection and Response. And this really is talking about the endpoint protection for your VM, for your Zadara VMs. So for a Zadara Cloud partner like yourself to now provide cybersecurity is really simple. All you need is SentinelOne, which is the software license, the EDR license that you install inside the Zadara VM that has the capability to protect that VM. And SentinelOne is a Gartner Magic Quadrant leader in this area. And then Arrosoft comes in to provide the 24/7 managed SOC services to actually monitor and remediate anything that happens to that VM through SentinelOne. So with this, Zadara Cloud partners can now provide cybersecurity services, endpoint protection and detection and response services without needing to build your own SOC and hire your own security experts. So we chose to work with SentinelOne because SentinelOne not only has been a leader in the Magic Quadrant for many years now, they are one of the most highly voted, highly rated in terms of voice of the customer, but they've also created a very simple to use solution. So what we like about SentinelOne is literally one agent can do end-to-end protection. So whether it's protecting the endpoint OS, whether it's protecting the attack surface management, whether it's providing all of the tools and data integrations to protect that endpoint, SentinelOne does all that with one single agent, which means lower costs, lower overheads, less things to install, less things to manage. SentinelOne also has very low utilization, typically about 1 to 2% of CPU utilization, which makes it very not resource intensive at all. And because it leverages AI, it's also able to detect all the zero-day malwares and prevent attacks from zero-day malwares. One of the most important features of SentinelOne is what they call rollback, and that is SentinelOne's ability to rewind the entire system to a state as if before the attack happened. And I've got a whole slide on that. I'll tell you about how SentinelOne rollback works. And basically, SentinelOne provides best-in-class attack surface management and also provides data ingest from all of the third-party data sources to really be not only a endpoint protection, but an end-to-end response and remediation platform for the entire cloud services that the customers may have. Okay, so SentinelOne rollback is achieved through a technology they pioneered and patented called Storyline, Active Response, or STAR. So what happens is that anytime a new file is introduced into the SentinelOne protected environment, the endpoint, SentinelOne starts to create a storyline of what activities that file has done. So anytime you click on the file may do certain functions, do some child processes, right? Go somewhere, create copies. Everything is not only being tracked, looked at, but also recorded by SentinelOne. Okay, it's like a timeline of things that file has done. All of the processes are scanned by SentinelOne to make sure that they're not doing something illegal, right, or something that they should not be doing. And if one of the processes starts to look like it could be a malicious process, SentinelOne will stop so that it will not go any further and cause more damage. SentinelOne will stop this process. But beyond just that, SentinelOne, because it has been tracking all the changes, now allows you to roll back all of these damage and all of these changes to a time before the attack happened. So think of it like a time machine, right? It's literally a time machine in your endpoint. An attack has happened. I can reverse the damage of that attack. And SentinelOne allows you to reverse that damage as far back as 1 year, right? So you can store this storyline data for up to 1 year, for forensics and analytics if you want to. So this we feel was a very, very unique differentiator, right? Not many EDR solutions have this rollback capability as powerful as SentinelOne. SentinelOne also has AI-enabled threat scanning. So SentinelOne has got 3 scanning engines. The first one is what they call the reputation engine. So whenever a file is introduced, before the file is run, SentinelOne will scan the file hash value and compare it with the database, right? So this is similar to a signature. Does this file look like a malware I've seen before, right? And if it passes this hash value comparison, SentinelOne doesn't just blindly accept it. It goes to the next level called static file analysis. So if SentinelOne looks at the hash and says, okay, this is a file I've never seen before, there's no hash value, it's not a known malware hash, I'm not going to believe you, I'm just going to look inside. So SentinelOne will use AI to do a file analysis scan and look at the file headers and the file structure. So attackers today are using AI to modify old malwares so that they look new and they can evade signature scanning engine, traditional antivirus, right? But with AI file analysis, this AI will look at the internal structure and recognize that, hey, on the outside, you look like a new file, but on the inside, you look 70% like a known malware. We're going to flag you as a known malware, okay? So this takes away the power of the attackers in using AI to create zero-day attacks, because now these 0 days can be discovered and protected by SentinelOne. Then in the execution phase, that's where the STAR storyline comes in, right? If the file has passed reputation engine, has passed the file analysis, when you run the file, it looks like it's doing something suspicious, then storyline comes into play and you can do a rollback. So the whole idea is that with SentinelOne, you can have an environment that's immune to zero-day malwares, provides faster response, and has the ability to remediate and roll back to a time before the attack even happened. So all of this is available in a simple license called S1 Control. S1 Control, which is their base license, has all of the capabilities of your hash technology, your static file analysis, and also your storyline. So for full protection, you only need to have S1 Control. For customers who want to do MDR, which is where we come in later, or they have a security team who wants to do active threat hunting or forensics, or they want to store the storyline data for more than 14 days, then we recommend that they go with the S1 complete license, which provides more of these threat hunting capabilities and the ability to store storylines for up to 1 year. Okay. So now that you have SentinelOne installed, right? What next? So many customers, especially if you're selling to SMB, may not even have their own security team or people who know how to manage a cyber attack. Or if they do, it's probably one person who also kind of is the network security guy, and he doesn't work around the clock. So whenever a cyber attack happens late at night, they only find out about it the next morning or on Monday morning. So that's where managed detection and response services like Arrosoft MDR comes in. So what we do is we will actually, our engineers in a 24/7 SOC will actually monitor your customer's SentinelOne environment. And we will do this around the clock to ensure that even if an attack happens in the middle of the night, there's someone there to catch it immediately. Then we will have cybersecurity experts, certified experts, who will do this monitoring and remediation for you around the clock. So your customers don't need to hire a team of 6 to 8 cybersecurity engineers just to get 24/7 coverage. Arrosoft already has that. We provide that to you anywhere around the world in English language service. The whole idea is that with these two aspects, you can now greatly accelerate your time to identify, respond, remediate, and roll back from a cyber attack. So the longer time the attacker has to play around in your environment, the more damage they can do, right? So our response times are geared to about 15 to 30 minutes for high severity incidences. So within about 15 to 30 minutes, there's someone who's already attending to an attack happening in your customer's environment. We will not need to contact you for permission. We will fix the problem, roll back, solve the issue, and then send out an advisory that, hey, you actually, you know, at 2:03 a.m. last night, these 3 servers were actually hit by a malware. SentinelOne caught them. We remediated it. We rolled back to the previous stage. 0 damage was done. We're just letting you know, right? And on top of just monitoring and responding and rollback, we also do active threat hunting. So this is a big differentiator, right? Active threat hunting is basically checking your entire environment and looking for threats that are lurking but haven't been triggered yet. So we know cyber attacks or ransomware attacks sometimes can play out over weeks or months. When you see a ransomware, you have been ransomware notice, right? The malware that did that probably entered your network 3 months ago, and it was hiding, doing other forms of damage, replicating, watching. So threat hunting will actually go out and scan your network, specifically looking for active threats and identify and stop them before they even occur. So all of this requires a lot of skill set, and that's what the Arrosoft MDR team is designed to do. So Arrosoft MDR for SentinelOne protects your customers' compute assets with 24/7 coverage, less than 1 hour response time, up to 15 minutes for critical issues. We monitor your endpoints. We alert you if there's an incident, and we do the remediation and rollback. We also, over time, will start to do the alert and false positive tuning so that your SentinelOne environment runs more efficiently. So you get less of these false positives and filter out and only leave the critical alerts. We can also use SentinelOne to do endpoint isolation. So once a threat is detected, we can isolate the endpoint so that the threat is contained and cannot move around freely. We do proactive cyber threat hunting and also agent patching and updates. So with this, we have many Zadara partners who offer cybersecurity services to protect the customer's assets in Zadara Cloud, right, provide the end-to-end monitoring service, but they don't need to build a SOC team. Arrosoft MDR service does all that for them remotely. Okay, so obviously our team members have to be certified, and these are all of the certifications that they have. Majority of them have all of these press, offensive, security, certified ethical hacker, right? So not only do we have the ability to secure, we know how attackers think so that we can get ahead of the attack and stop them before, sometimes even before the attack occurs. So just to summarize, we're at the end of the presentation, right? I really, really appreciate your patience and your interest so far. So what we have covered so far are basically these 4 use cases that you can build on top of your existing Zadara environment, which includes cloud migration and disaster recovery using Arrosoft Cloud Any software, backup as a service using our wide range of backup solutions and the Arrosoft managed backup service. You can provide ransomware protection as a service to drive consumption of your, not only your backup, but also of your Zadara storage using Arrosoft AirGap and Arrosoft Stealth. And as an additional revenue stream and to get you into the cybersecurity space, you can also provide managed detection and response using SentinelOne as the EDR platform and Arrosoft MDR services as the monitoring, 24/7 monitoring and remediation solution, right? So with that, I'm going to end here. I really want to thank Touchnet for letting us share with you the things that we have designed and done to work with Zadara partners to drive additional Zadara consumption. And I really appreciate all of your time, taking time off from your busy day to be here with us this morning.